The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by any species. Its crystal walls stretched upward for miles, and floating platforms carried diplomats from 1,000 different worlds. Light from distant stars filtered through the transparent ceiling, casting rainbow shadows across the assembly floor. Ambassador Telos of the Empire stood at the center platform, looking down at everyone else. This was intentional. They always positioned themselves above other species. They believed they were superior, and they wanted everyone to know it. Telos was tall even for his kind. He stood 9 feet high with 4 burning orange eyes and skin that looked like polished metal. His armor was alive, a creature that had bonded with him at birth and would protect him until death. He had commanded fleets. He had burned worlds. He feared nothing in the universe. Today, he had come to deliver a message. The human delegation sat on a small platform near the bottom of the hall. There were only 3 of them. Captain, a small woman with black hair and calm, dark eyes. Lieutenant, a young man who kept checking his tablet. And an older diplomat whose name Telos had not bothered to learn. Humans were new to the galactic community. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 200 years ago. They had a handful of colonies, a small defense fleet, and no real power in galactic politics. They had conquered species far more advanced than humanity. This would be simple. Telos activated the translator implant in his throat and began to speak. "Humans of Earth," he announced, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "The Empire has claimed the planet you call 442b. Your colony there is now on Imperial territory. You will remove your people within 30 rotations of or we will remove them for you." A murmur rippled through the council. Several older species exchanged knowing glances. They had seen this before. They took what they wanted and no one stopped them. Captain stood up. She was so small compared to the ambassador that she looked like a child facing a giant, but her voice was steady when she spoke. "Ambassador Telos," she said, "there are 40,000 people on 442b, families, children, elderly people who cannot easily travel. That colony has been our home for 60 years. We will not abandon it." Telos laughed. The sound was harsh and cold, like metal scraping against stone. "Then they will die," he said simply. "Your species is young and weak. You have no fleet that can challenge our warships. You have no weapons that can scratch our armor. This is not a discussion. This is not a negotiation. I am telling you what will happen and you will accept it." The older diplomat tugged at sleeve, whispering urgently. Lieutenant shook his head, but ignored them both. She took a step forward, her eyes fixed on the massive alien above her. "Ambassador," she said, her voice still soft and polite, "I am going to give you one chance to change your mind. Walk away from 442b. Go back to your empire and forget about our colony. Pretend this conversation never happened. I am asking you nicely." The hall fell completely silent. Even the ancient observers, beings who had watched empires rise and fall for millions of years, leaned forward with sudden interest. Telos stared down at the tiny human woman. His 4 eyes narrowed with confusion and anger. No one had ever spoken to him this way. No one had ever dared. "Is that a threat, little creature?" he asked. "No," replied. "It is a warning, and it is the only one you will get." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Telos began to laugh again, louder this time. Others in the hall joined him. The sound filled the crystal chamber like thunder. 30 rotations, Telos said when his laughter finally stopped. "Then we come for your world, and when we are finished with your colony, perhaps we will visit your as well. Earth, you call it. Such a small planet, it will burn beautifully." He turned and walked away, his living armor rippling with each step. His guards followed, their weapons gleaming under the starlight. The human delegation remained on their platform. Lieutenant was pale. The older diplomat was shaking, but Captain simply watched them leave, her expression unchanged. After a few minutes, one of the elders approached their platform. It moved slowly, its ancient body supported by a floating chair. Its eyes were deep and sad, carrying the weight of countless centuries. "Child," it whispered to, "do you understand what you have done? They have ruled this region of space for 12,000 years. They have never lost a war. They have destroyed entire species for smaller insults than what you just gave." Turned to face the elder. She smiled, but there was something strange in that smile, something that made the ancient creature uncomfortable. "With great respect, elder," she said, "they have never fought humans before." "What does that matter? They have superior numbers, superior technology, superior weapons." Nodded. "Yes, they do, but they do not understand what they are facing." She paused at the edge of the platform, looking toward the door where they had disappeared. "They think this will be easy. They think we will surrender or die quietly. They are wrong." "And what will you do?" Smile faded. Her eyes grew cold. "Whatever it takes," she said. "However long it takes, however many of us have to fall." She stepped off the platform and began walking toward the exit. They just made the biggest mistake in their 12,000 years of conquest, and they do not even know it yet. The elder watched her go. In all its long years, it had never felt afraid of a species so young and small. But something in that woman's eyes had sent a chill through its ancient heart. The war was coming, and the galaxy was about to learn what humans really were. On the sky was always red. 3 suns circled the planet, and their combined light painted everything in shades of blood and fire. They believed this was a sign from the universe. They were meant to conquer. They were meant to rule. The red sky was proof of their destiny. War Master stood on the observation deck of the Imperial Palace, watching his invasion fleet gather in orbit. 3,000 crystalline warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. 500 planet crackers, massive vessels designed to break worlds apart. 2 million soldiers, trained from birth to kill without mercy or hesitation. It was the largest fleet assembled in 200 years, and it was all for one small human colony. Some had called this excessive, called it efficient. He would crush the humans so completely that no species would ever dare to challenge the Empire again. The galaxy would remember this day for 10,000 years. His intelligence officer, a thin and nervous named, entered the observation deck. He carried a data tablet and walked with the careful steps of someone delivering bad news. "War Master," said, bowing low, "I have completed my research on the humans as you ordered." Did not turn around. Summarize it. How quickly will they fall? 1 week, 2. Hesitated. His claws tightened on the tablet. "Sir, I believe we should review this information carefully. The humans are different." Now turned, his 4 eyes fixed on his officer with cold irritation. "Different how? They are soft, they are small, their bones break easily, their skin tears, they die from wounds that would barely scratch a child." "Yes, War Master, all of this is true." Activated the tablet and projected a holographic image of a human. "But there are other things, strange things." He pulled up the first file. Humans are what scientists call persistence predators. On there, they did not hunt by being faster or stronger than their prey. They hunted by following animals for days, sometimes weeks, never stopping, never resting enough to let the animal escape. They would chase a creature across mountains and deserts until it simply collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would kill it. Shrugged. Primitive hunting, irrelevant to modern warfare. Perhaps, pulled up another file. But consider this. Humans have a chemical in their food called capsaicin. It is found in plants they call peppers. This chemical causes intense burning pain when touched or eaten. It is technically a neurotoxin designed by the plant to prevent animals from eating it. And humans eat it for pleasure. They compete to see who can eat the most painful varieties. They give these peppers to their children. Was silent for a moment. That is unusual. There is more. was sweating now, his metallic skin glistening under the red light. They have another substance called ethanol. It is poison. It damages their internal organs, impairs their thinking, destroys their coordination. In high doses, it kills them. So they avoid it. No, War Master, they drink it recreationally. They have developed thousands of different varieties. They celebrate with it. They mourn with it. Some humans consume it every single day despite knowing it is slowly killing them. Said nothing. His 4 eyes had grown slightly wider. Continued, his voice rising with each fact. They climb frozen mountains where the air is too thin to breathe, and the cold can kill in minutes. They jump from aircraft with only fabric sheets to slow their fall. They swim in oceans filled with creatures that can eat them whole. They strap themselves to rockets filled with explosive fuel and launch into the emptiness of space. He paused, scrolling through more files. War Master, humans began space exploration before they had reliable life support systems. They knew they might die. They went anyway. Their first astronauts sat on top of controlled explosions and hoped for the best. When some of them died, the others lined up to take their place. The observation deck was very quiet now. Even the hum of the palace system seemed muted. And there is one more thing, said, his voice barely above a whisper. I found a concept in their historical records. They call it spite. What is spite? It is when a human chooses to hurt themselves in order to hurt an enemy more. They will accept pain, accept loss, accept death, if it means their opponent suffers as well. Their history is filled with examples. Wars where they burned their own cities rather than let invaders take them. Soldiers who crashed their own vehicles into enemy positions. Entire populations who chose to starve rather than surrender. Lowered his tablet. War Master, I am not questioning your judgment, but I believe these humans may not react to our invasion the way other species have. They may not surrender. They may not flee. They may fight even when fighting is hopeless, simply because they refuse to stop. Stared at his officer for a long time. Then he turned back to the window, watching his magnificent fleet glitter against the red sky. You are afraid, he said finally. I am concerned, sir. Then you are not fit for this campaign. His voice was cold. These humans bleed, they break, they die. Nothing survives our weapons, nothing resists our soldiers. We have conquered 400 species and not one of them has stood against us. But sir, enough, raised one massive hand. Return to your duties, prepare the intelligence briefings for the assault commanders, and remove any of this nonsense about poisonous food and spite. It will only confuse them. Bowed and retreated toward the door, but before he left, he turned back one final time. War Master, he said quietly, I hope you are right. Did not answer. He was already planning the invasion, imagining the human colony burning under his weapons, imagining the screams of the dying and the silence of the conquered. He had destroyed 17 civilizations. This one would be no different. But deep in the back of his mind, something was bothering him. A small doubt, like a tiny crack in his confidence. He pushed it away and focused on the fleet. In 30 rotations, the humans would learn their place, and the galaxy would remember the power of the Empire forever. He was absolutely certain of this. The fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of crystal and fire. 3,000 warships arranged in perfect formation, their hulls catching the light of distant stars and scattering it into rainbow patterns across the void. Behind them came the planet Crackers, massive vessels shaped like curved blades, each one capable of splitting a world in half. War Master stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and smiled as 442b appeared on his. It was a small world, blue and green, covered with clouds. 40,000 humans lived on its surface, building their little homes and raising their children, completely unaware of the death that had come for them. Signal the fleet, commanded. Standard conquest formation. I want the planet surrounded within the hour. Yes, War Master. His tactical officer began issuing orders. Settled into his command chair and waited for the surrender transmission. It would come soon. It always came. No species had ever looked at a war fleet and chosen to fight. But the surrender signal did not come. Instead, a single ship rose from the planet's surface. It was tiny compared to even the smallest destroyer. A diplomatic vessel, barely armed, built for speed and communication rather than combat. It flew directly toward the invasion fleet, broadcasting on all frequencies. "What is this?" demanded. His communications officer adjusted his controls. "Sir, they are requesting to speak with you directly." The signal identifies the speaker as commander of the Korean Space Command. Laughed. "One ship. They send one ship to face 3,000. Open the channel. Let us hear what this fool has to say." The flickered, and a human face appeared. Commander was a middle-aged man with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes. He sat calmly in his captain's chair, apparently unconcerned by the wall of warships before him. "Fleet," said, his voice steady and clear, "you are in violation of human territorial space. You have 60 seconds to reverse course and withdraw. This is your only warning." The bridge crew looked at each other in disbelief. Several of them laughed. "Commander," replied, letting his amusement show in his voice, "I am War Master. I have destroyed 17 civilizations. I have burned more worlds than you have cities. Your 60 seconds mean nothing to me." 52 seconds remaining, said, as if he had not heard. "You have one ship, one small, weak ship. What exactly do you think you can do?" His expression did not change, but something in his eyes grew colder. "I am not threatening you with one ship, War Master. I am threatening you with 12 billion humans who are watching this conversation right now, live, across every screen on every colony and every station in human space. 12 billion people who are about to watch you reject our final offer for peace." Paused. This was unexpected, but he had faced psychological tactics before. They never worked. "Threats from primitives do not concern me. Surrender your colony, and I might let some of your people survive as servants." 41 seconds. Leaned forward slightly. "Did your intelligence officers tell you about our history, War Master? Humans have been fighting each other for 200,000 years. We invented ways to kill each other faster before we invented ways to grow food reliably. We split the atom and immediately used it to destroy 2 of our own cities, filled with our own people, just to end a war a few days sooner." 30 seconds. His voice remained calm, almost pleasant. "You think you understand war because you have conquered 400 species, but those species were civilized. They valued survival. They surrendered when the mathematics of battle turned against them." 20 seconds. "Humans are different. We fight when winning is impossible. We fight when fighting makes no sense. We will burn our own homes before we let an enemy take them. We will crash our own ships into your stations if it means taking you with us." Felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize it as doubt. 10 seconds. Smiled for the first time. It was not a happy smile. "You are not facing a species, War Master. You are facing a problem, and we are very, very good at solving problems." 5 seconds. "What is your answer?" His pride flared hot and bright, burning away his doubt. He had never backed down from a challenge. He would not start now. "Destroy that ship," he ordered. Weapons fire lanced across space. The diplomatic vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Commander died instantly, along with his entire crew. "It is done," the tactical officer reported. "The ship is destroyed." "Good," settled back in his chair. "Begin planetary assault. I want troops on the ground within." "War Master." It was the intelligence officer, his voice barely above a whisper. "We are receiving transmissions from Earth, from their colonies, from everywhere." "What kind of transmissions?" His hands were shaking as he worked his console. "Not surrender, sir. Enlistment confirmations. Military volunteers. He paused, checking his readings again and again. In the last 30 seconds since we destroyed that ship, 400 million humans have signed up for military service. The bridge fell silent. That is impossible, said. That is more soldiers than our entire army. They are still coming in, sir. His voice was rising with panic. 500 million, 600 million, 700 million, they are not stopping. Stared at the display, watching the numbers climb. Each number represented a human who had just watched Commander die and had responded not with fear, but with rage. Sir, the communications officer interrupted, we are receiving a transmission from the colony, from the surface. What do they say? The officer swallowed hard. One word, sir, repeated on every frequency, the same word over and over. What word? The officer looked up at his war master with fear in his eyes. Come. Stood slowly and walked to the... Below him, the little blue planet hung peacefully against the stars. 40,000 humans were down there, waiting for his army. They knew they were outnumbered. They knew they could not win, and they were inviting him to try anyway. For the first time in his very long life, War Master wondered if he had made a mistake. The war lasted 3 years. By every logical calculation, it should have been over in 3 weeks. They had superior technology. Their weapons could destroy cities in seconds. Their shields could stop almost anything. Their soldiers were 9 feet tall, covered in living armor, trained from birth to fight and kill. They had conquered 400 species without serious resistance. But the humans did not fight like other species. When they destroyed one human ship, 3 more appeared to take its place. When they conquered a colony, the survivors did not accept defeat. They hid in mountains and forests and underground tunnels. They attacked supply lines. They sabotaged equipment. They fought with guns, then with knives, then with rocks and bare hands. Commander led the resistance fleet from the asteroid belt. She was 62 years old, a retired schoolteacher who had never fired a weapon in anger before the war began. Then they killed her husband and her 2 sons in the first assault on 442B. Now she commanded 50 ships and had destroyed 200 vessels. They called her the Ghost. Her ships appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. She used tactics that made no sense to the enemy. She packed asteroids with explosives and launched them at staging areas. She turned civilian cargo ships into missile platforms. She once rammed a damaged transport directly into a command station because her weapons were destroyed and she refused to retreat. The crew escaped before impact, surely? Asked, reviewing the battle reports in his office. His superior checked the records. Negative. The crew remained aboard to ensure accurate aim. They left a final message. What did it say? See you in hell. Put down his tablet. He had learned what hell was, a place of eternal suffering where humans believed bad people went after death. They had flown into a station while promising to meet their enemies there. Sir, said carefully, I would like to request transfer to non-combat duties. We need every officer. On the ground, the fighting was even worse. Sergeant Minyu was 24 years old when the war started. He had wanted to be a doctor. He had studied medicine for 6 years and was 3 months away from completing his training when they attacked. Now he led a squad of 30 soldiers, defending a mountain pass on colony. They sent 3,000 soldiers to take that pass. Minyu had 30 people and limited ammunition. The battle lasted 18 days. By day 4, they had run out of bullets. They had to make new weapons from broken equipment and rocks. By day 9, they had run out of food. They ate whatever they could find in the mountains. By day 12, half the squad was dead and the rest were wounded. Medical supplies had run out on day 6. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They did not call for rescue. On day 18, they finally broke through their position. They expected to find corpses or perhaps a few survivors ready to be captured. Instead, They found 17 humans still fighting. 17 starving, bleeding, exhausted humans who refused to die. It took 600 soldiers to finally stop them. The humans killed 900 before they fell. But they did not stay fallen. Field Medic had taken 3 bullets and could barely move. As they examined the bodies of her friends looking for intelligence materials, she dragged herself toward the emergency charge console. It was a self-destruct system, designed to destroy the entire position rather than let it fall to the enemy. She activated it with her last breath. The explosion killed every soldier in the area. 2,000 dead, erased in a single flash of light, because one dying human refused to let them win. The Galactic Council watched these events with growing horror. Representatives from 100 species gathered to discuss what was happening. "They do not surrender," the elder observed, studying the battle reports. "We have watched civilizations fall for millions of years. We have never seen anything like this." "They should have collapsed in the first month," a diplomat protested. "Their fleet was destroyed. Their colonies were burning. They had no chance of victory. This is completely illogical. They are dying by the millions." "Yes," they agreed, "and that seems to make them fight harder." "That makes no sense." "Many things about humans make no sense." The elder pulled up another report. "Do you know what their soldiers say before they go into battle? They say they are fighting for the soldiers who already died. They say they are fighting for the soldiers who will come after them. They say they are fighting for people they have never met and will never meet." "Why?" "Because they are human," the elder shook its ancient head. "We tried to warn you. We told your ambassador that this species was different. He laughed at us." The diplomat had no response. Meanwhile, the war continued. Every day brought new reports. A human pilot who flew his burning ship into a carrier, destroying both. A team of engineers who held a space station for 3 weeks against overwhelming force, broadcasting encouragement to other human positions until the end. A teenage girl on a conquered colony who spent 6 months feeding false information to leading them into ambush after ambush, before she was finally caught. When they captured her, they demanded to know who she worked for. She smiled and said she worked for herself. She said that every human on every world was part of the resistance, whether they carried weapons or not. She said they had not invaded a civilization. They had kicked a hornet nest. They did not understand this metaphor. They did not have hornets on there. But they were beginning to understand the feeling. 3 years after the war began, War Master stood on the bridge of his last flagship. It was not the same flagship he had started with. That one had been destroyed in the battle along with 200 other ships. This was his 4th command vessel, and it was damaged, its shields flickering, its weapons running low on power. Of his original fleet of 3,000 warships, only 400 remained. Of his 2 million soldiers, fewer than 300,000 could still fight. The planet crackers were all gone, destroyed in a desperate human assault 6 months ago that cost them 40 ships and 12,000 lives. The humans had considered it a bargain. And still they kept coming. Stared at watching the human fleet surround his position. 3 years ago, humans had no real war fleet. Now they had over 2,000 vessels, built in secret shipyards, crewed by volunteers, armed with weapons designed specifically to kill. Every ship that fell was replaced within a week. Every soldier that died had 10 more waiting to take their place. "Incoming transmission," his communications officer reported, from the human flagship. Closed his eyes for a moment. He knew who it would be. He had faced her 3 times in the past year, and each time she had beaten him. Each time she had let him escape, pulling back her forces when she could have destroyed him completely. He did not understand why. Mercy was not something they practiced. Perhaps she was toying with him. Perhaps she was waiting for this moment. "Open the channel," he ordered. Admiral's face appeared on the screen. She was older now than when they had first met at the Galactic Council, gray hair mixed with the black. New scars crossed her face, marks from battles where she had led from the front. But her eyes were the same, calm, patient, completely without mercy. "Hello again," she said. "I hope you remember me. I was at the council meeting when your ambassador declared war on my people." "I remember," replied. His voice was tired. "You warned us." "I did. You did not listen." His expression did not change. "I am calling to accept your surrender." His pride flared one last time. "Surrender? I still have 400 ships. I still have 300,000 soldiers. I can still fight." "Yes," agreed. "You can. And if you do, I will tell you exactly what will happen." She leaned forward slightly. "In 6 months, you will have no ships left. In 1 year, you will have no empire. In 2 years, there will not be enough left alive to fill a single colony ship." She paused to let that sink in. "We have done the math, War Master. Humans are very good at math. It is how we split atoms and calculated the trajectory for crashing ships into your stations. We know exactly how this ends if you keep fighting." Said nothing. Behind him, his bridge crew was silent. "You have a choice," continued. "Surrender now and your species survives. Your empire is finished. That is not something we will discuss, but your people can live. They can rebuild. Maybe in a few thousand years you will be a great civilization again." "And if I refuse?" Smile was small and cold. It was the most terrifying thing had ever seen. "Then we will chase you across every star system in this galaxy. We will find every colony, every outpost, every ship. We do not get tired. We do not forgive. And we never, ever forget." She raised one hand and pointed directly at him through the screen. "You killed Commander in front of his family. Do you know how many humans volunteered to fight specifically because of his death? 80 million. 80 million people who wanted nothing more in the universe than to make you pay for one man." Her hand dropped. "That is who we are. That is what you declared war on. So what is your answer, War Master? Surrender or extinction?" Looked around his bridge. His officers stared back at him with exhausted eyes. They had fought for 3 years. They had watched their friends die by the thousands. They had seen their invincible empire humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive and weak. He thought about his intelligence officer who had tried to warn him before the war began, was dead now, killed in a human raid that should have been impossible. His last words had been a message to, "I told you so." Finally bowed his head. "We surrender," he said. The treaty was signed 3 days later on neutral ground, witnessed by the Galactic Council. The Empire was dissolved. All conquered species were freed. All weapons above a certain power level were confiscated. That was placed under observation for the next 100 years. And humanity took its place among the elder races of the galaxy. At the signing ceremony, the elder approached Admiral. Its ancient body was supported by a floating chair, and its eyes carried the weight of millions of years. "We have watched civilizations for a very long time," it said. "We have seen empires rise and fall. We have seen species born and die, but we have never seen anything like your people." "We are not special," replied. "We are just stubborn." "No," the elder studied her carefully. "You are terrifying, and I think you always were. You just needed someone to show the galaxy." Smiled. It was a tired smile, the smile of someone who had lost too much and fought too hard. But there was warmth in it too. "Hopefully, no one else needs the lesson." She turned and walked back to her delegation. There was work to do, colonies to rebuild, refugees to relocate, wounds to heal. The war was over, but the real task was just beginning. Behind her, representatives from 100 species were quietly updating their diplomatic protocols. The new guidelines for dealing with humanity were simple. Do not threaten human civilians. Do not underestimate human determination. Do not, under any circumstances, declare war on humanity. because they would win, not because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because they simply refused to lose. They would fight when winning was impossible. They would sacrifice everything for victory. They would burn the galaxy to ashes before they let an enemy defeat them. And now, finally, the galaxy understood what that meant.